You are now listening to Fourth Down Fiasco, Season 2.
Fires, Mike Sims, Walker, knocked down.
Oh my God! Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
In trouble, he's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40, gets away again.
Jackson takes it himself. Look at him dart back and forth. Oh! He broke his ankles.
I have never seen this before in my life.
Still looking, firing, near corner. It's caught.
Denver, unbelievable.
And welcome to the Fourth Down Fiasco.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fourth Down Fiasco, brought to you by BetStamp. You already know what it is. We are so excited. It's Season 2, baby. No response, Tanner?
I thought Danny was going to go a little bit harder, so I thought I could just stay away on it.
Absolutely incredible. Season 2 off to a phenomenal start here. But yes, it is your three favorite idiots, Tanner, Danny, and Jordan, coming to you live right now. Not actually live, but we got a lot to talk about because
Live
the
for us.
ELF is right around the corner. And so, today we're going to be previewing, which division is it, Daniel? Is it the North? The North Division. Wow. Hey, shout out to the North, Jon Snow and all of them. Build the wall, but not like we're doing here in the United States. The real wall, the one that keeps out the White Walkers. So,
Like the Berlin Thunder Wall.
Justice for Rob.
that we're not trying to build that kind of wall either, Danny.
Well, we're talking about Berlin, so
Fair enough. We are talking about Berlin. Let's just go ahead and dive into it. Talking about the ELF, the North Division, which has Berlin, has the newest addition to the ELF, the Nordic Storm, has the reigning champion, the Rhein Fire, and then, of course, the other guys, the Hamburg Sea Devils. So,
rip.
rip. So, previewing the four teams in the North Division, starting off with Berlin because we think Berlin's probably going to be the worst one in this bunch. Fellas, how are we feeling about this very incomplete roster right now?
I don't like it. I don't. It doesn't help that they've only, what percent was it? 45% of their roster is complete. They have 29 of 65 players signed.
1A import, 3E import. So
1A import, 3 imports.
And if you're looking at the roster, sorry, go for it.
No, they did bring back Jacob Sullivan, passing leader from last year, over 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 picks, and 63% completion percentage. So can't complain the quarterback.
No wide receivers to throw to right now.
Correct.
You were going to say, Tanner?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the roster, just looking from 2024 to 2025, I mean, there is very few overlap between these two teams. I mean, you have a few players here and there. I mean, honestly, it might be less than 10 of the players returning to the Berlin Thunder were playing on the Berlin Thunder last year. And the Thunder weren't particularly good last year, unfortunately. They weren't terrible. I mean, they did a lot better than some of the other teams from last year. But they weren't a playoff contender. And even though they were trying to make a push as best they can, I mean, they were pretty much eliminated from the playoffs halfway through the season.
Yeah.
So when you look at it going into this season, you're not having a lot of overlap. You don't have most of your roster figured out, and a lot of the best guys have already found spots on their teams. You're kind of hoping for a miracle and who you're going to be able to pull, like just some diamonds in the rough that maybe nobody has discovered yet. Like that's really their path to victory here.
Well, I mean, they already lost their best player in Kyle Kitchens. Even as great as Jake Sullivan was, Kyle Kitchens, I think we can all agree, was single-handedly the reason why they even had a chance at, potentially making a playoff push there towards the end of the season.
They also lost Aaron Jackson.
Yeah, I was about to say they also lost Action Jackson. So
their team is gutted.
It looks bleak for sure.
It looks like a bad year. but they got a new logo.
Oh, goody. Yeah. Because logos win championships, right?
Yeah. Under new management, new logo. I don't know. That whole Aaron Jackson fiasco when he signed with Helvetic, and then they're like, oh, wait, he's under contract with us still. Like, you can't sign him. And then now he's out of the ELF because of contract disputes, and he's playing in some random league.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Berlin won't cancel his contract, and he doesn't want to play for Berlin. So he said, I'll just sit out for a year.
Wow. Good for him.
Good precedent to set for Berlin. That's really how you get people to believe in you.
Hey, yeah, our third best player on our team, we don't want him, and we're going to treat him like crap. And yeah,
pretty much.
Well, not do right by him at the very least, right?
Yeah, at the very least. Fair enough.
Yeah, if he doesn't want to play, you at least don't want to burn that bridge, right?
Yeah.
But they decided to anyways.
Yeah, with how young this league is, like if a dude doesn't want to play for you, just cut him loose.
Yeah, move on.
Like there's no reason to do that. Like
yeah,
that just like especially being one of the original franchises, like that just looks bad.
It does. Yeah.
Well, you don't get the leeway that you get when you're part of like a major sports operation, right? Like the Chicago Bears can get away with being incompetent because the Chicago Bears have been around for 100 years and have a storied past and all of those things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Berlin doesn't have the same notoriety or popularity or any whatever you want to call it.
Pedigree.
They don't. Yeah, pedigree. Yeah, they can't get away with it. So, well, I mean, I guess they can get away with it to an extent. But if you're known as the organization that's not going to do right by your players, where do you think your players are going to end up going?
No, yeah,
all of your rivals.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Well,
I mean, the league's not very big. There's not many teams to go to. Like, you're going to end up playing that player. But I will say the one thing Berlin is doing right, they're building in the trenches. The offensive line, 2 of their 3 imports so far are O-line. We got Connor Bolton, who's a great British guy, so a UK guy. So Matt's probably very excited about that. And they got in Jose Ariza, who's a Spaniard. So at least they're spending some imports on the O-line. We've always talked about how bad the O-lines are in the ELF from last year. Yeah. And then they signed, Noah Nabuo? Maybe? Nabuo? Played played D1 ball, but he's a homegrown. So he's a German homegrown, played D1 ball.
Yep.
So they're doing something to at least protect Sullivan and to let their new running back, Emil Fuchs, eat. Because last year, he only played 9 games last year before he got hurt. Had 50 touches for 218 yards. On paper, not very good. But that is 4.4 yards a carry on a crappy Cologne Centurions team.
Yeah.
Put him behind a good O-line, get him some more touches, keep him healthy.
And I don't think you should ever really complain about a running back giving you 4.4 per play. I mean, if he's getting you 4.4 per play, that means you're converting first downs, right? Like,
yeah.
And especially, if they can get some wide receivers for Jake Sullivan to throw to, we know that Jake Sullivan has an arm. He's got a launcher back there. So, you stack up the you stack up that wide receiver position a little bit. You allow for Jake Sullivan to do his work. Then that really will open up some things for Fuchs as well. Because, people are going to have less guys up front in the trenches trying to, stop the wide receivers from going crazy in the backfield. And then, every once in a while, Fuchs just going, go up the gut, do his thing.
Dance a little bit.
He does have some good footwork from what I've seen.
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, he looks good.
He got hurt last year. I'll be curious. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a splash signing for an A wide receiver with Berlin. There seems to be a lot more NFL-ish wide receivers coming over to the league, or at least like USFL. Well, USFL seems more deep, like safeties. But there's a couple NFL-touched players, not playing games or anything, but at least practice squad. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if Berlin went out and got one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit with our interview with Ben Holmes of just there's quite a number of people who are choosing the ELF over the USFL at this point.
UFL now.
Or UFL, excuse me. Yeah, you're right.
Over the last 4 years, they've changed names 4 times. So
yeah, it gets confusing. And the ELF, at least for the past 4 years, has been a better ran league than the UFL, the XFL, the USFL, any of those leagues that are now all the same thing. But yeah, better ran league, and also I think that there's an appeal to playing in a place like, a Vienna, a Berlin, a Copenhagen, a Madrid versus Birmingham, Alabama, I
was literally about to say, I was like, if I had the option to move to Madrid or Birmingham, I think I would know pretty quick which one I'd pick.
Yeah. And, they're probably getting paid about the same. But
I'm going to Google that real quick.
What was that?
I'm going to Google that real quick because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, what do UFL players make?
I think once you factor in the fact that ELF players get their housing paid for and, get the stipends for their food and stuff, I think that it ends up being about the same.
So they get paid for the year while ELF players don't. So that's going to be tricky. Gotcha. The base salary for a UFL is $55,000. Okay.
Yeah, no, that checks out. That sounds about right. Because, they're not, at least to my knowledge, the UFL guys are not getting, like, apartments paid for and things like that, are they?
I think they have housing. Or no, they might have to rent. I think they have housing, but they have to pay some for it, the UFL guys.
A percentage of it? Gotcha.
But like the top end import players are probably making roughly between like 15 to 25 for their 5 months of work. So if you factor that in, they're probably making something similar.
Yeah.
But they do get housing, food, everything paid for in the ELF, not in the UFL.
Yeah.
Also, the ELF's not going on strike or threatening strike. So
also that, yes. Yeah. Which is helpful. So, at the end of the day, regardless of how much it is, it's not like these guys are making, it'd be a lot different if the UFL was out here paying, $250K, on the year for these players. They're not. And so, yeah, dude, I would much rather hang out in Berlin than Birmingham, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, No,
yeah. And their practice schedule in the ELF is probably a lot more lax than the UFL. A lot of these homegrown players have a real-time, like a full-time job.
Right.
So these A imports and E imports just get to hang out during the day. Yeah, they'll go work out and practice on their own, but like their dedicated practice times at night where they just go work out or practice for a couple hours at night and then go home and enjoy the town the next day.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's Berlin. Any final thoughts on Berlin's very incomplete roster?
Tanner?
Slide over.
No, not at this time. Like I said, we're doing this a little early, so it's always hard to say exactly how it's going to go for this roster and how they're going to do. But just based on what the other rosters look like, based on some of the things that Berlin has struggled with so far this offseason, I think it's fair to say that by the end of next year, Berlin will probably be last in their division. So,
yeah. No, I'm with you.
We're only 46 days away from kickoff. We're a month and 2 weeks.
So the fact that they're this incomplete is worrying,
Yeah. 6 weeks out and you have 45% of your roster. You don't even have a full offensive line.
They're not even the worst, which is really sad.
Who's worse than them?
Paris has 12% of their roster.
They'll be fine. They have Coach Del Rio.
I think they have 12 people, actually. Not even 12%. 12
There's no way they have 12 players on their roster with less than 2 months to go.
They're just keeping things quiet right now. That's what it is.
Sorry, my bad. 13.
Oh, they have 13 players on their whole team?
They have 2 A imports and 1 E import.
They can barely field an offense. If all of them played offense, they have just enough.
Yeah. I think they're going to kind of pull a Stuttgart. Stuttgart, they waited and then dropped their entire offensive line signing on like one day. So they announced like 12 signings on one day. So
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like Paris is kind of holding a workout as well.
Yeah.
Well, and also to give credit to Paris, their top end players are much better than the top end players of Berlin. So,
Oh yeah, I mean, Jalen.
really,
Well, we'll talk about Paris and the West Conference at a later date, but Jalen Henderson, we'll see if he can compete. We'll know he can compete, but to what level?
Think he can, but that's just me.
He had 11 Americans on Potsdam last year, but that's a whole different thing.
Look, good mechanics. That's all I'll say about that, brother. Good mechanics.
That's fair.
Hamburg Sea Devils. Now, they have an almost complete roster. They have all 4 of their A imports. They have their 6 E imports. And they're
99%.
Yeah, their big issue really is just a lot of unproven talent. You know, I don't have any qualms with their roster per se, but Micah Leon, career backup it was Florida, right?
Yeah, UConn for a year and Florida for a year.
Yeah, so career backup in college, granted for 2 D1 programs,
schools, yeah.
So there's still talent there, but it's just we haven't seen him play ball in multiple years.
He hasn't played since 2023. It's now going to 2025.
Yeah, so just don't really know what to make of him.
Yeah. But yeah, the Sea Devils are 1 player away from a complete roster, which is crazy already. Mm-hmm. But they did bring in some help from Michael Leon with Terrion Robinson.
Yeah.
Career journeyman in the ELF, but super reliable, super big, tall guy, quick,
big target,
great hands. And then we talked about Berlin, but Kyle Kitchens decided to hop on over, same division, to the Sea Devils.
Yeah.
We know he's a dog.
Yeah, absolute animal. Now,
they didn't do anything to help him. They did nothing to help him. The rest of their D-line is garbage.
Well, they did use a lot of their import tags on linebackers, so I'm curious if they're going to be doing more of like blitzing smaller guys and kind of trying to hide some different coverages potentially with their linebackers that way, or.
Yeah, they spent 4 of their 6 E imports on defense, 3 linebackers and 1 defensive back. So if Kitchens gets triple teamed, send a linebacker. I don't know.
I mean, if you have a scary linebacking core, I mean, that could be instrumental for mounting like a dominant defense, right? Like if you have good inside and outside linebackers, you essentially remove the entire middle of the field of play. Like you're gonna have to hope which in the ELF, that's a little bit harder of an ask because if your guy's faster in the ELF, you're going to beat the guy, which doesn't necessarily work in the NFL, but in the ELF, like if you just have a burner who can beat his guy reliably, then who cares if the middle field's not in play because you just throw to the outside. Yeah. But if that isn't happening and they have like you said, they use one of their E imports on a DB that can at least, maybe do some shadow coverage and keep up with their guys. Oh, wow. Having the middle of the field completely locked down and having that get removed for offenses could be really dangerous for defensive planning.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, Tanner.
Yeah,
it's about the defensive scheme. So their last A import is Nazir Streeter. He hopped over to Hamburg middle of last season after he got cut from Helvetic. He's one of the best safeties in the league, but they currently list him as CB2 on the roster. So they're going to be playing him as cornerback instead of his natural position at safety. So you have the E import DB as well. You have another, you have your 1 E import DB, 3 linebackers, and then Nazir Streeter. How are you going to set up that defense? Are you going to keep him at DB or moving back to safety?
I mean, safety and corner is a lot. Like when you look at safety and corner on like the face value, it seems pretty easy to move people in and out of it just because, you're playing in the secondary, right? Like how different can it be? But it's a very different position, like just from a defensive mindset. Like when you're playing safety, you have to be very aware of your space on the field. You are not, when you're playing a safety, like when you're playing corner, you're mostly a man-on-man corner, right? Like most of the time, like, yeah, you can drop into zone, you can cover your spots, but most of the time you're blanketing somebody, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if they're moving him to corner, I'm assuming that means that their defensive coach sees him and thinks he can keep up with wide receivers and he can do blanket coverage on them. Because normally you would never move a safety to corner if you have concerns about their speed or concerns about their ability to play one-on-one coverage. But if they're moving them to corner, then there's a chance that Hamburg feels confident enough that, hey, this guy can play as a lockdown corner. He has the speed for it. He has the measurables for it. He can break up passes. He can, be faster than the other guys on the field. So let's move them out of safety and let's just make sure we lock down, their number 1 or number 2 target. And that could work. But most of the times, the reason why safeties are safeties and not corners is usually they're undersized. And typically, they're usually just smarter players. So you want them to be in those kind of zone coverages, kind of hide behind defenses, or they're just really fast and you use them to blitz because there's plenty of blitzing safe. I mean, think of like Mike Hilton in the NFL. Mike Hilton can't do anything besides a blitz, and he's really damn good at it. Like, he's great at playing in the nickel and blitzing, but outside of that, you don't want to trust him with any of the other safety.
No. We both had firsthand experience with that playing on Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was telling Danny was I'm curious if they're going to start following kind of the strategy that a lot of NFL teams have been doing as the past couple of years, where your CB2 actually does cover your best, the other team's best wide receiver, but it's like you have them lined up against them, and then you've got the safety coverage in the back to be able to help you out in case you do get burned, and then you've got your CB1 going one-on-one against their wide receiver too. Yeah. So I'm curious if that's more of the route that they're trying to go with Naj Streeter, of like, maybe. Because he probably is the best DB in that entire room. I doubt that there's going to be a better import.
Rodion Henrique is pretty good. He came over from, I think, the Enthroners. He's a Dutch player. He had the pick 6 against Ben Holmes week 1 last year.
Oh, but fair enough.
Shout out.
I believe. But I feel like he's a pretty solid player. So it's a weird combination. Yeah. And I'll be curious to see, and I was curious to see what Tanner would say about that. Because, I mean, I would kind of compare Nazir Streeter kind of like a Cam Chancellor style. Not as big of a guy. Yeah. But like, he will, if you go across the middle, he'll light you up.
He will pop.
But if they're locking down the middle of the field with their linebackers,
then you might not need him to play the middle of the field.
Yeah.
But there's so much value in playing like if you have a similar skill set to Cam Chancellor, obviously, not as athletic or able to, hit as hard, right? Because I don't think there's very few people in the NFL who's hit as hard as Cam Chancellor has. But I would never, as an NFL GM, put Cam Chancellor as a DB. Mm-mm. Right? Like, that's just something I would never do with his play style because he brings so much value at safety. So I'm wondering what Hamburg is seeing on the defensive end that they're saying, let's make this guy our corner 2 instead of being our starting safety. So, because there's got to be some value there. They're not doing it just because they're saying, oh, we need a corner, we're just going to force you to play out of position. There's something they're seeing in training camp that's making them think that he can play that position, at least I hope, or that's not a good sign.
Maybe they'll try it for a couple weeks, and if it doesn't work, they'll go back. But it is sad to see, though. Like, Hamburg went to back-to-back championship games, and then it's just fallen off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, hopefully that they, with this upgrade, I would say that this is definitely a roster upgrade, again, with having Kitchens on the roster now. And, I think even with what little we do know about Michael Leon, anytime you can get a D1 talent onto one of these rosters, even if they're a career backup, D1 is D1. That is he's still getting reps in practice against other D1 talent. I think that it gives you a chance. But yeah, I mean, it seems like they're making all the right moves to try and figure something out. I appreciate, since we're in such the early stages of the ELF, this being season 5, right? That, it's kind of fun to see how football has almost been scaled down to I hate to call it a more primitive state, but truly of, especially with the different rules that they have as far as imports and everything, you can't just stack an entire defense with nothing but American football players, So it's cool to see them being like, okay, you know what? We're going to try this strategy of just anything in the middle of the field, we're just going to say you can't have it by beefing up our linebackers. Like, I just think that there's something so fun and almost wholesome with a lot of these teams of just like, they're just throwing shit against the wall, seeing what sticks, trying out different strategies that used to not work. Maybe they do work. Maybe they're a pipe dream, whatever else, but it just makes it fun.
And it's not a bad idea because, I mean, if you look at NFL rosters, I mean, think about the Kansas City Chiefs defense over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. What has been their strongest area on defense? It's really been their linebacking core.
Yeah.
So if you have a good linebacking core and you can lock down the middle of the field, because that's the thing is that's the easy stuff, right? Anything in the middle of the field, you have to throw touch, but usually your guys are going to be open.
Yeah.
So if you can find the open receiver, that's easy for your quarterback to make those reads. Now, maybe those throws are harder, but the thing is typically what you struggle with a quarterback at this lower level is not their athleticism. It's typically their IQ.
Yeah.
Because they don't process the game at an NFL level, so they're usually struggling with that. So if you're removing the stuff that's, that a high IQ quarterback is going to rely on, and you're removing that for something that has a lower ceiling, that could really throw off opposing quarterbacks' games because they're no longer getting those easy reads. And then all of a sudden, they're going through the progression. They're 1, 2, and 3, and typically, they're only going to make it to 3 before they make a decision. If 3 is no longer available, a lot of quarterbacks that are at this talent level might fall apart to that strategy.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it in real time also with the San Francisco 49ers with Greenlaw and what's the other guy's name that's really good?
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm spacing. That's going to bother me.
It is.
But they have a dual threat at linebacker with just 2 dudes who are freak athletes, can pretty much end to end, cover any end of the field that you need them to do whatever you ask of them. Freak athletes, and the teams struggle against that, and you start to see a lot more, especially with how hard they hit too. I don't remember what exactly the number was, but I remember them showing a stat of how many more dropped passes there are in the middle of the field against specifically the 49ers than any other team in the NFL. And it's because, dude, if I know that I'm about to get popped, those hands get a little soft towards the end of that catch. You hear footsteps, you don't secure quite as tightly, and so. I think that I'm with you, Tanner. I think the strategy at least currently works, and it's cool to see them do it in real time with this Hamburg roster of, seeing if that translates. Because if it does, it could be huge for them, especially with having a guy like Kyle Kitchens in the trenches. Man, you get to that third progression, and if that ball ain't out, you better take off because Kyle Kitchens will get through that triple team. It don't matter. It don't matter.
Yeah. But Tanner already kind of said his predictions on the record of the Sea Devils at 5-7. Jordan, where do you see them ending up?
Well, you're killing my over/under that I was going to do for us at the end of the show.
Never mind. Wait. Tanner's announced. He posted that on his standing graphic. So
this is true. Yeah,
that's fine. We'll talk about that later. I just think they'll have another down year. That's what I think. I don't think they're on the up yet.
Fair enough.
But a team that is on the up.
I will say before we move on to the next one, I do like this roster compared to the roster last year. So even though they might still be a mediocre team, this is at least an exciting mediocre team,
right?
Which is better than just being flat mediocre. So I do like what Hamburg's doing, and I like that they're taking chances and they're taking risks, and I hope it works out for them. I just think there's much better teams as we're going to see as we keep reviewing these teams.
I would be excited as a Sea Devil fan to go from Torrin Justice and D'Angelo Fulford to Taron Robinson and Michael Leon.
Yeah.
That's an upgrade. And that's not even talking about Kyle Kitchens.
Yeah.
They didn't have a single U.S. guy on their D-line last year. They spent them on their A imports on Brandon Richard, who, to be honest, I don't remember him. But I don't think we talked about him last year. He wasn't.
Well, and that's the thing is if they make Kyle Kitchens happy and Kyle Kitchens likes playing in Hamburg, I mean, that's your franchise guy.
Yeah.
He likes the coach. The coach they brought in, he played with before. So that's why the big reason he signed with Hamburg was the coach.
Hey, good move.
Yeah, good on them.
That's smart football right there.
Yeah.
But Danny, you were going to segue into a team that is, it's kind of hard to say that they're on the up and up since they didn't exist last season, but
technically they're on the up because there's nowhere to go besides up.
Fair enough.
If they went 0-12, it'd still be up because they're a new team. But the odds of them going 0-12 with the roster they have, highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So the newcomers, the Nordic Storm, they made a splash. Their first two signings as a team, they just ripped the former MVPs of the league and championship game right out of the Rhein Fire's hands.
Yep.
Clark and Tunga.
Yep. Yeah.
And
got Clark and Tunga.
Two more Fire players out of their hands, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, got multiple Fire players. They actually, they also got a couple of the good Berlin Thunder players as well added to their team. I mean, they look stacked.
Oh yeah.
I'll read off their import class real quick. So their import class, they have 10 players, right? Clark, Tunga, brought in Xavier Edwards. Not my favorite safety, but good in the right scheme. Mm-hmm. Stole Luke Glenna from Madrid. Sorry, Tanner. Mm-hmm. Got in Brendan Brendan. I don't know how to say his last name. American wide receiver from the GFL. Brought in Moreno for tight end. Brought in Mac Parkinson from the Fire on the D-line. Falelo, I think, is the linebacker from the Fire. And then brought in Chad Walrond as a safety. And then Khalid Adisa. I don't know him, but I've heard he's pretty good. So their import class, did you guys see their graphic? That was an insane graphic.
Yeah, the Avengers graphic. That was sick.
Because Adria Botella Moreno, he made the graphic. His side gig, I don't know if his main job or whatever, is a graphic designer. He's the one that does a lot of the graphics for random leagues or random teams in the leagues and stuff.
Isn't he also the one that partners with Bressington?
Maybe. He's the Speak with Caution guy. His graphic design page is Speak with Caution. So if anyone's listening to us, they probably know him. But his skill is insane.
Yeah.
But then another thing before I stop talking, they have some big boys on the O-line and D-line.
I was just about to say they got some. Dude, they have some fucking trees on that O-line. My God. They
brought out of retirement Joachim Christensen, who won a championship with Tunga and Clark already. Mm-hmm. And then they stole the Icelandic polar bear from the Helvetic Mercenaries, Matthias Roll Hummelmoose. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm not Nordic.
You sure, Daniel?
Yes. Well, you're definitely Nordic, but you're not from there, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm German.
What's the difference?
But that's fair. Tanner, your thoughts on the newcomers?
Oh, I mean, if you want to be good your first season, this is the way to do it, all right?
Yeah.
Like, just take the top talent, spend a shitload of money, and hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, I think we've mostly covered it. I mean, they have Glenn Tunga, they have Jadrian Clark. Like, that alone is probably going to be good enough to get you to a winning record. And then on top of that, I mean, their trench play looks good. I mean, they brought in good pieces on defense. As long as their receivers can do their job, like, their offense is going to be pretty electric. And I
am curious about their wide receiver room because they do have Brennan Bialiu. I don't know. It's not sound American, but Brendan, their USM or A import. He hasn't played in the ELF before. He was in the GFL. Curious how he's going to be in the ELF. But then they do also have Theo Landstrom and Jacob Green, who, according to others, are pretty solid as a 2 and a 3. But Clark doesn't have his Quofi or Harlan McKnight to throw to anymore. But they did bring in their big tight end with Moreno.
Yeah. No, I imagine they're going to be really good. I'm not going to pick them to be a champion just because they're a brand new franchise. And spoiler, I didn't pick them to win this division just because they share it with the Rhein Fire, who is a team that, since we've started watching and, hearing about it the first off season, they're kind of the boogeyman of the ELF. Like, the Rhein Fire are just a well-constructed roster. And even though they took the 2 best players from them, I trust in good organizations, and it's going to be hard to top a team that has that type of history to them. So I'm rooting for the Storm. I think it would be really cool if a team comes in and does phenomenally. I mean, kind of like Madrid did last year. I mean, Madrid shocked everybody with how well they played, and I think this Nordic team is going to be way better than Madrid was last season. So
yeah, on paper they look a lot better than year 1 Madrid, but year 2 Madrid, scary. We'll talk about them in a couple weeks.
Yeah, no, they made some good moves as well. I mean, I understand the not wanting to pick the Nordic Storm over the Rhein Fire. But I do think that they poached enough good players, even outside of Tunga and Jadrian Clark, that I don't know. It's a toss-up, is what I would say to it. Because I mean, you're losing the MVP of the league. You're losing out on your championship MVP as well in Jadrian, and then on top of that, it's 2 offensive linemen that they took from the Fire, right?
D-line and linebacker.
D-line and linebacker, okay. And look, I'm looking up the heights and the sizes of these linemen, bro. This Hammer gentleman 6'5", the Stefansson gentleman 6'5", Hummelmoose 6'4". Like, they are going to have some absolute trees on the offensive line, and we know what happens
behind them.
Yeah, we know what happens when you give Glenn Tunga a good offensive line. It's house call every time. So,
and I forget if it's Alexander Kennedy or Michael Kanate, but one of them, I think he's like 21 years old or 20 years old, and he's supposed to be really fast. But I don't remember.
That up for you while we're talking about it.
But I don't know. Or if I remember, I'll throw it out there. But the Fire have completed 62% of their roster, by the way. They have 40 of 65 players, or 41 of 65 players. So.
You mean the Storm or the Fire?
Who is Michael Kanate? Yeah, that brother running a 4.3840. That's crazy.
Fast.
At 210 pounds. Woo. Yeah.
How old is he?
Yeah.
How old
I
is
didn't
he?
see his age, but he looks like a baby face. So
yeah. So apparently he played for the national team, and apparently he's really fast and really good.
Yeah.
So you got Tunga as your power back, and I guess somewhat speed back, and then you got Kanade as your designated speed back.
Running a 4.38 at 210. That is. God knew better than to let me be like that. I'll say that. Any last words on this really well constructed so far Nordic Storm team?
I'll just be curious to see. They didn't give them an easy conference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really Hamburg, if they weren't in this conference, I think would have a much better record this upcoming year.
Who do they play? Who's their interconference games as well? Or what did I have it? Yeah, Hamburg. I'll talk more about it later, but Hamburg's strength of schedule was the 5th hardest in the league. Their interconference game is Madrid, Prague, and Stuttgart.
Okay, so Prague, they get a dub. But Stuttgart and Madrid probably going to be a wash for them.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that is brutal. That sucks. On top of having to play the Rhein Fire and basically the Nordic Fire as well. So,
yeah.
But speaking of the Rhein Fire, sorry, what was that?
No, I'm just saying they did not give it easy.
No. Speaking of the Rhein Fire, the 2024 ELF champions, let's take a look at their roster because they had some shakeups. They've got Chad Jeffries now at quarterback, which I like that. I think that, if you're going to lose Jadrian, Chad Jeffries is a good facilitator of the ball. He makes smart decisions with the ball. Was kind of a bright spot on a not so great team last year. Well, not so great, but a mediocre on good days.
Fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah, and a team that we all kind of blinked and said, wow, Munich really did make the playoffs. And but no, Jeffries is a good arm talent in this league. Who else do they have on this team? So, I totally forgot they signed friend of the pod, Jordan Bois. Bois. That's actually really good. Good for them.
So I some people could say the Fire are rebuilding. I think they're more reloading. Kind of like what college basketball does, where they lose a guy and then they just bring in someone good.
Because I'm looking at it.
With Tunga. He's the best running back in the league, obviously. Mm-hmm. But they signed Harlan Kofi to like a 4-year deal or something like that.
Yeah, that brother's stuck there forever.
They signed Jordan Bois, speedster on the outside. They've yet to sign an import wide receiver. That wide receiver room with the two of them is already good. Yeah. Bringing in a solid A wide receiver, Jeffrey's going to have himself a day.
Yeah.
But the only thing that I'm worried about is their running back room. It's going to be a committee, it looks like.
Yeah,
most likely. Kendis and the snaps he played last year looked pretty decent, though.
Yeah, it's not the worst, but you can only compare it to Tunga because he's been there the last 2 years.
Which isn't fair on Kendis either, because it's
not at all.
The Adrian Peterson of the league. Heaven forbid he not be him, Yeah.
And I wonder, maybe Ryan saw things they liked in Kendis and was like, if we lose Tunga, we can still run the ball. And that could absolutely be something that happens. And we might be sitting here halfway through the season being like, oh, wow, we did not give Kendis enough credit, right? So
if he wants to prove it.
Yeah.
We're here for it.
Yeah. But their defense is still going to be great. They lost a couple pieces, but it's still good. They brought back Amari Williams.
I was about to say they still have the best DB room in the entire league, and
they upgraded their DB room.
Close either.
They signed former XFL player Darius Nash.
Yeah, I saw that.
With Nash and Williams, probably the best secondary in the ELF.
Oh, yeah. Those two, you still also have Till Jansen, who was really good last year, and Tony Anderson as well at safety, who, I almost, until I realized that I would have accidentally skipped over Kyle Kitchens, which that would have been a disaster at the time. But my midseason unsung MVPs or whatever, the guys that, I was like, they have no chance at winning because their team sucks. Mm-hmm. Before I had Kyle Kitchens, I actually was looking at Tony Anderson because I was like, okay, his team's just too good. But, he at the time it was either 2 or 3 interceptions. He had 2 forced fumbles. He had multiple pass breakups. So, no, this defensive core, this defensive back core that they have, elite. It is the best defensive back room in the ELF, hands down. And it's not close.
And their coach knows how to win. The Fire know how to win.
The Fire know how to win. Yeah,
they went back to back for a reason. You can't, like Tanner always says, why bet against them when they haven't lost?
That's fair. No, my big question for them is the linebacker that they missed. How much are they going to miss him? And then just general offensive and defensive line questions that you can ask any team legitimately. I know that they brought a lot of their O-line back, so it should be fine in theory, but it does just make you wonder how much of it was Glenn Tunga being absolutely incredible, or is it more of their offensive line is truly incredible? We're going to find out. They
gave them a lot of holes.
Yeah.
But they do still have an import open, so they could pull a random linebacker from some other country.
Bro, convince Dawson Dales to come out of retirement, dog.
They don't have an import. Dawson Dale's American.
Oh, damn it. I thought he was French. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they do have an import, but it has to be an offensive import, unfortunately.
It'd be a waste to use 3 on defense, but they could bring in an American linebacker.
I mean, with having Jordan Bois and Kofi at wide receiver,
they could.
Yeah, they could bring another defensive player if they were allowed to.
Or shit, if they don't feel confident in the running back room, get an American running back.
I was thinking
that'd be crazy. Yeah. There's only been a couple, and they have not been good. But go out and get a D1 running back or something. Could work. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, you could get a guy who, just running backs don't have the same value in the NFL as they used to, man. Yeah, you get a guy who just kind of slipped through the cracks during the draft.
You'll get like Philip Lindsay.
Philip Lindsay made too much money for him to do that.
Yeah, no, Philip.
I was thinking more so along the lines of like an Anthony McFarland Jr. I don't know if you guys remember him. He played at Maryland. No. He was not great in the NFL at all, but I mean, he saw open lanes pretty well. He was a pretty big dude. I mean, I could see him go crazy in the LF if given the opportunity.
I mean, yeah, dude, I would literally just scour all the passed over talent that runs a 4.4 or faster, and just be like, hey, is anybody interested?
Can you hit a hole and can you catch a ball? That's all we need.
Yeah. Hell, you don't even have to catch a ball because they got Jordan Bois and Kofi. Can you run? That's
true. But a pass back, a catch passing back
would be nice. Yes.
Catch.
I knew what you meant.
Pass catching back.
There you go.
With that wide receiver room would be terrifying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Any last words before I read off the strength of the schedule for this conference?
Nah, I guess my last comment is that defensive back room is going to go absolutely ballistic, and I am incredibly excited to watch it.
And they'll have their money cut out for them. They get to play Vienna twice. They get to play Paris twice, and they get to play the Raiders twice.
On top of playing the Storm twice.
What?
On top of playing the Storm twice.
On top of the Storm twice. And depending on the Sea Devils, the Devils twice.
Yep.
Yeah. But Tanner, final words on your North Division champions?
I don't know. I'm excited to see when their final roster's done. I think whatever they use that import on is going to be huge. So, and I really don't think they can go anywhere wrong. Their roster already looks relatively complete, so the fact that they get to play house money with an extra import is massive. So
getting Bois is crazy.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping they go running back with it. I would really like to see an American running back on one of these teams and see how they perform. But I also would as much like to see Kendis kind of just be the guy, the career backup for Ryan, and then come in and be the starting guy and still fill in the roles of Katunga well. That's a great storyline too.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to watch. I liked watching the Rhein Fire last year. They're a very different team this year, and I think I'm still going to enjoy watching them just as much. So,
good football is good football.
Good football is good football. Agreed.
But strength of schedule for the North. The easiest strength of schedule is the Nordic Storm at 14th. They have the third easiest schedule. The Thunder come in at 11th, kind of in the middle of the pack-ish, more towards the bottom. Then we jump up to 5th toughest at Hamburg. Hamburg has the 5th toughest schedule, which is not good for them.
No.
And then the Rhein Fire, the back-to-back defending champs, adding some challenge into it, give them Paris, give them Vienna, coming in at 4th toughest schedule. So there are still 3 teams above them with a tougher schedule.
I mean, the way that they did the conferences this year, I think it really evened out a lot of the teams. And I think that especially now that they're doing a better job with the interconference stuff as well, getting some real matchups. Because I'm tired of watching in the interconference matchup of Vienna beating up on the Enthroners for the second time in a season or whatever it is.
Even though they're the same conference, but I get your point.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Sorry, you get what I'm saying.
I think the parity in the league this year should be a lot smaller than last year, because we got a new team that should be top of the league and lost 2 teams that were at the bottom.
Yeah.
The product's just going to be better this year because we don't have to watch the Milano Seamen. So
that's true. And sorry, Jordan, but the Barcelona Dragons.
Hey, I'm wearing a relic at this point.
By the time we bought it and by the time it got here, it became a relic.
Yeah.
It was modern and relic before we even got it in hand.
But that means that I can just cheer on whoever I want to cheer on this season.
That's true.
I don't feel guilty about jumping ship because there is no ship to jump from.
It's already sank.
Yeah.
But I will say the hardest strength of schedule is the poor Tyrol Raiders. They have the hardest strength of schedule because let's see, who do they have interconference? They have the Vikings interconference, Madrid interconference, and Rhein interconference. That is a brutal interconference schedule. And then they have Munich and Madrid in their own conference.
Pain.
And then we don't know about Helvetic. They got a whole new team. That's a wild card. Like that is, if the Raiders make the playoffs, be careful. Because they're
if the Raiders make the playoffs, then that means that they are battle tested and they are legit. Yeah. So,
and then Tanner, you're gonna like this. Somehow you have the hardest and easiest conference or strength of schedule in the same division. The Madrid Bravos are the 16th easy. This has the easiest schedule.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Well, they're probably gonna do better than 9-3.
So, because they have the Enthroners as one of their interconference. They got Frankfurt and who else? Hamburg.
Wow.
So
good for you. Happy for you.
You should have a good year, especially with the team they got. But once again, that's for a different week.
Well, real quick before we end out the show, I have a little rapid fire over under for us just to make things a little spicy here. These don't need long explanations. These just need to be whatever your gut is telling you here. Okay.
You're telling Tanner and I that? You leave us alone for a week and we have a 2-hour podcast.
I'm telling you not to be long-winded, Daniel. Tanner, you can be long-winded if you want to. It's fine.
Tell
I knew you were going to let me.
All right. Over under Glenn Tunga, 29 total touchdowns.
29 total touchdowns.
How many did he have last year?
He had 30. He had 30 rushing, and then I think he had 1 receiving last year.
I'm going under.
Going under?
I mean, 30's already that's probably going to be his career high. Like, I'm going to be honest, 30 is an insane metric. So I'm assuming he's going to regress just a little, not a ton, just a little.
Okay.
I'm going under as well. I hard to repeat 30 plus. Even though they have a giant offensive line, they ran a lot because they were hurt.
I'm going to go over.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think that with how massive that offensive line is, plus it's not like they have, impeccable wide receiver talent on the Storm. So,
Clip that.
So, all right. Over under Micah Leon, 2,200 yards passing.
So 2,200 would put him at, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Basically, every quarterback that played all 12 games last year hit the 2,200 yard mark.
That is true. Clark finished out of all 12 games. Clark finished last at 22-15.
Mm-hmm.
If he plays all 12 games, over.
Okay.
I'm going to lean over as well. I don't think that's too ridiculous of a bar.
I like the Terrion Robinson signing.
I'm going to agree with y'all on the over on that one as well. All right.
Yeah.
The Rhein defense. Really, we're talking about their defensive backs. Over under 13 interceptions. They had 13 last season.
Let's see. Where are they?
I'm going over, personally.
I mean, 13 interceptions for a team, that means they're at least getting
a pick a game.
A pick a game and at least one game with 2.
Yeah.
Does that count playoffs, though? Is that 13 including playoffs?
Nope. It's all regular season.
Oh, no. Yeah, games played. Yeah. Holy cow. Stuttgart had 29?
I saw that. I was wondering if that was a typo and if they had
Madrid had 21.
Well, that's because they had like 12 against Barcelona. So
yeah, that's actually a fair point.
But 13.
21 is insane.
Although I bet because we played Stuttgart too, and that was the game that they had to end or whatever. So I bet they probably got quite a few of those interceptions against us too.
I'm going to take under because of the talent they play.
Spicy.
You got Paris and Vienna for 4 of your games, and then the Storm for 2 more. So half your games are against solid teams, like really solid teams.
Fair enough.
I'm going over as well. I mean, their DB room's better. So their DB room's better, and they had 13 last year. I could see them.
There's a world. All right. Jordan Bois, over under 600 yards.
Over. Sorry, I didn't need to hear it.
I already had this conversation with Matt. I said he's getting at 900. I said over under 900 or 850 to Matt, and I took the over.
Okay.
He's hitting 1,000.
Word.
I think he's going to hit like 950. If he has a good, depending on their import. Yeah. These are all relying on them playing a full season, obviously.
Yeah.
But depending on their import, if Bois is the main wide receiver, he's going 1,000. As a number 2, he's hitting the 900 mark.
All right. Jake Sullivan, over under 3,000 yards. It's a hard one because we don't know jack shit about this roster.
Over under 3,000? He had
last year? Over 3,000.
32-16 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Under.
I'm going under as well.
I don't think you reach the 3,000 yard mark.
Yeah, I'm going under as well.
Yeah, I mean, looking at
unless they bring in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, just how good their offense was last year, and 3,200 was the total. I mean, he's easily going to have less than 200 yards than last year, just with what he has on his roster right now.
Yeah, unless they bring in some superstar that actually played NFL, like Reese Horn, like that was on practice squad, played a preseason game. I don't think he's in that 30. He's probably finishing 2,600, 27.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like 25 personally.
That's where I was leaning.
It's hard to guess with unknowns.
Fair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's why it's fun. I got 4 more, and these are all based on wins and losses and all that jazz. Nordic Storm, over under 10 wins.
10.
I'm going under. I think they're going to win 9, and I think Ryan's going to win 10. So
okay.
You need to do like a half, like 10 and a half.
Fair enough.
Like, what if they win 10?
Fair. Yeah, my bad. Well, then I'll revise it for the next one that I ask.
But hold on, so Tanner took the under.
So we'll say 9.5 wins.
I'm going to take over 9.5 because they play Rosloth and Helvetic and Frankfurt as their interconference. I think they could lose to Rhein twice and finish at 10-2.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I have the over on that. I think that they'll get 10. I think that they will split with Rhein, but I can just see because they are a new franchise dropping a game somewhere.
Yeah, the Panthers could put up like 50 points somehow.
Yeah, it happens, All right, Rhein Fire, over under 9.5 wins. Tanner, we already know your answer. You're over.
I'm going over. I think both are going to win 10.
Spicy. I'm with you. I
think they tie the conference. Like the lead of the conference goes down to a tiebreaker.
Now, these next two, this is where the real fun is. Berlin Thunder, over under 4.5 wins. Do you think they win 5 games? I'm going under.
They got Cologne, Munich, Farivar.
I think Munich's a better team than them right now. Cologne might be too. I don't know, just because their roster's so incomplete at the moment.
I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna give them 5.
Okay.
Did you say 4.5? I'm gonna give them 5.
Yeah.
I'm going under. I had Cologne winning 4, and I have Berlin winning 3 in my early standings predictions. I think just Berlin doesn't have a roster at this stage. Yeah. It's tough for me to see them winning a lot.
I'm predicting they finish out their roster well at 5.
And then my last one, Hamburg over under 6.5. Ooh.
I'm going under. I think 5 to 6 wins is where I see them going. I think they're going to be very middle of the pack, even though I like their roster. And what you said, they have the 5th hardest schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, winning 7 games for that team, that's tough.
Especially with their interconference, Madrid, Prague, and Stuttgart. I don't see them beating Stuttgart at all. I don't see them beating Madrid at all. I can see them beating Prague twice, maybe split that. So I'm going under.
Fair enough. I'll go over just to. I like the makeup of their roster. I think that they're doing the right things.
They could surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that they're kind of like my going into the season dark horse. Could be if the stars aligned, the last spot going into the playoffs.
People said Hamburg was supposed to be really good last year, and they had like 5 wins.
Yeah, but this roster is also a lot better than that roster was. So.
That's true. They did lose a game 51-2 last year, but
yeah. Any last thoughts, gentlemen, as we round up our season 2 opener?
This is probably one of the tougher conferences or divisions.
For sure.
I feel like this one's going to go right down to the wire for the win.
Yeah, you have 2 teams in this conference that could be genuine championship contenders.
Yeah, Nordic has the edge in my book just because of the strength of schedule. It sucks the Rhein have to play Vienna and Paris, where the Storm don't.
I have Storm edging it out just because, I know that we say don't bet against Rhein because Rhein they are the top dogs, but also don't bet against Tunga and Jadrian Clark, So I'm gonna stick with the dynamic duo, the Superman and Batman combo of those 2.
Yeah, I've said my piece.
Tanner,
I think I got everything out. So
cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to us today. We appreciate your time. Shout out to all of our Euros out there hanging out with us. You can follow us on X at @4thdown_pod. You can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram at 4thdown Fiasco. Again, yes, we are doing a giveaway right now. So make sure you check that out. It's on our Instagram. So again, at 4thdown Fiasco on Instagram. If you participate correctly, you get a chance to win 2 tickets to the game of your choosing, a regular season game of your choosing, because we're broke boys.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate y'all so much. Thanks so much for checking out season 2, and we will see you next week.
Peace
and kisses.
And I'm gonna keep doing them both because they make me feel good.